Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The Communication Engagement Advisory Committee is now in session, and I would like to have the meeting called to order, please. And our invocation is by Ms. Paula Jones.
Let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all together tonight. Thank you for your grace and mercy. Help us to make the best decisions for the betterment of the city of Jacksonville. We give you all the praise, honor, and glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Paula. We'd like to welcome new members, and there are some that I don't know, and I have asked Ms. Lily Gray to introduce the ones that I don't, so I won't miss anyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Lily.
Good evening, Chair. We have with us tonight two of our newest Community Engagement Advisory Committee members. First, we have Pastor Chris Phillips joining us tonight from River of Life Church, and Bishop Will Smith from New Beginnings Christian Church. And both of them are representing our faith leader slots that we recently added to the advisory committee. We also have two of our summer interns from UNCW joining us this evening. We have Paul Snoringberg here and Moses Eschet. Did I get it right? Moses. All right. Welcome, guys.
Okay, we're glad to have you. Glad that you could be present. Thank you. Now, we have, I'd like to have a motion to adopt the agenda. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
We don't have meetings tonight. We'll have those.
You don't have them
next time.
tonight? Okay. So we just adopt the agenda. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Move. So move.
All in favor? Same sign?
Who's second? Yeah, we need a second.
Hmm?
Trying to figure out who did the second.
Okay. Okay, now, we have the New River discussion, Dr. Woodruff.
First of all, thank you very much for coming for a special meeting. And also, I'd like to thank the new members. I mean, Frank and Will and Chris, y'all have all joined recently to this committee. This may be one of your shortest meetings on record,
All right.
because it's really to give you a challenge and an assignment rather than to have a lengthy discussion. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, how many people know where New River is? If you do, raise your hand. How many people have spent more than 5 minutes in New River in the last year?
It's been
Okay.
a time.
But was that inside your car, driving through, or in a church versus being in the general neighborhood?
The neighborhood.
All of the,
In the neighborhood.
all of the above.
All of them. Mhm.
Several months ago, Mr. Jackson, new city council member, came to the city manager's office and discussed some concerns he was having with just the general decline of the area. We all know that New River was built in the 50s. There has been some modernization, but not a lot. We also know that over the last several years, the city has put about $1.5 million into certain facilities over there, especially in the Jack M. Yett area. But we still have challenges that we need to figure solutions for. Tonight is not to talk about solutions. Tonight is to ask you and to challenge you to spend more time, quality time, learning about the New River area, and plan to come back in your June meeting for discussions on what you see is going right there, what challenges you think we need to address, and what you would see as a solution. For example, if you think we need such and such a program, we need you to tell us that. The staff has spent some time looking at it. The crime data is very clear. There is crime throughout all of Jacksonville. There is no one area that's any worse than others. But we do see in the crime data, especially in the New River area and the area just across 17, as you take New River a little further into town, that we are seeing an increase in certain crimes that we just don't want to have continue. So we have to come up with a strategy on what's the problems, what are potential solutions. Now, my request of you is literally, don't just, like I do, I drive through New River at least 5 times a week, going to meetings. But I have to admit, other than spending a few minutes the other day looking at the splash pad and seeing the young people already out there playing, I don't spend a lot of time there. If I'm gonna find solutions, and if you're gonna help us find solutions, the only way you can do it is by having what? Personal knowledge, personal interactions. So, that's our challenge to you. We want you to spend time in the New River area, any part of it, all part of it. There's nothing off limits, there's no special, we're not saying spend time at the shopping center or the housing or the handy store or. Spend whatever time wherever you want to spend that time in the New River area. Make some notes about things that you're seeing and come back with some suggestions so we can put together a comprehensive program that will move this community back in the right direction. Councilmember Jackson, you spent a lot of time talking with myself and Chief Yanera.
Right.
What would you like to add to this?
Well, one of the things is like trying to find a direction based on the crime data that you've pulled, and hopefully I could get this to the rest of the members so they get a better understanding of some of the, how do we need to focus on what type of programs that we need directly to affect that area. When I was growing up, the hub of all sports activity was at Jack Amyette. And now that I think a lot of the older kids don't no longer use that area as much, I think that could be an issue with some of the crime. If we could find, maybe it's not a regulation court, but maybe we could do a 3-on-3 program.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt you, especially since you're my boss. We don't want to get into planning ideas in your
Right.
head tonight. You know, my wife, Gwen, she has I'll say habit, and she'll say, what was that man's name, Frank? Well, suddenly, the only name I can think of is Frank.
Okay.
So we really want to stay away from giving you thoughts, and that's why we don't have crime data to share with you tonight.
Okay.
Because if we shared that with you, it would taint your perspective. We don't want you to see New River as a bad area or as a good area. We want you to see it as
the
an
people that
area.
exist there, right?
And go look at the people who live there and form your own opinions and come up with your own plans.
So look into this light, all right? And pretend what I said didn't even happen.
Men in black.
Right, right. So basically, as Dr. Woodruff said, we have to interact with the people. I would say one of the things we try to lead from the top, bottom a lot of times, where we probably need to listen more from the bottom up and let the people, as Lily and I had talked about it recently, about find out from the people what they want, more so than what we're trying to do to push stuff down their throat. So,
Well said. Lily, you want to add anything?
No, he's correct. I agree. Listening is always valuable. We've done it in different formats. This is a different format with having you all on the ground. As Tracy knows, we've done neighborhood meetings out there regularly as part of our annual plans every year, 5-year plans. We've done surveys. So it'd be interesting to get your perspective of what you see as some of the concerns or needs. I know some of you as pastors work real closely evangelizing door to door. So you may hear things when you're talking to the residents. Are they sharing with you some of their challenges? That's information that would help us as you hear what may be some barriers, what programs might help overcome those barriers. You have social programming, and you also have physical things that may need to be done. So think of it both ways, not just buildings, but social needs as well.
Everybody understand the request? Hope you find time to do it.
That's
Our
when I ask you,
next,
it's socially, what you're saying is like boots on the ground?
yes, ma'am.
And this is but like knocking on doors and talking to people and finding out, ma'am, what could you tell me about your area? Maybe might want to move here. And then they'll tell you some things. You might
Right.
not want to move here because of this.
That's right.
And that way you find out. I don't say, say that's wrong, but sometime you have to find out, go up and ask the person, Because I know when we was out trying to get people to vote, we found out a lot of stuff that we really didn't know. And we were going door to door in Sandy Run's apartments at that time, so that's really a good idea.
whatever approach you want to take, you know.
Okay.
And of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you saying that you're on the city's Community Engagement Advisory Committee, that you have, that the committee is looking at the area to try to determine what we can do to improve the area. Just, tell them like it is.
As long as they don't get violent. We have to call Chief Yanero.
I'm in the process of helping the city rewrite the emergency action plan for hurricanes, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And I'm basically walking and driving around these neighborhoods now throughout Jacksonville. Okay? And I can tell you right now that I see certain things, and I've been taking pictures, and Councilman Jackson will tell you that because down at Sandy Run, we started taking pictures of the fence and the erosion of the trees and stuff
Right.
like that, which is going to inhibit the city sooner or later because it'll collect somewhere. But I was just looking at what the evac process would be. How do we get buses down here? Where do we get buses down here? How do we use, since the first responders are probably going to be inundated with requests and demands that are going to be outsurged, outpaced of the other neighborhoods, how do we get people out of those neighborhoods like Sandy Run, okay? Apartments, since I sit on the board, I always worry about them because a lot of those people don't have cars.
True.
Same thing in New River Apartments. I'm going around, I'm taking a look at those places, I'm saying, wow, how do I get these people out of here? If you looked at just the recent rains we had, some of the flooding that occurred down there, that gives you an idea what we have to deal with. So this goes into what I'm gonna be doing anyway.
Right.
For the city, because I'm doing it for the city. City can't afford to pay for it, now I'm an expert in it, so I might as well give someone volunteer time to do it, so I'll do it right. You got a freebie there, Doc, so just be happy.
And we appreciate it. We'll mail you your check every 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, I got that. Thank you, that's all.
But that's the assignment, is to ask you to spend time in the New River area, get to know it, identify those things that you think are going well, those things that aren't, and come back with some solutions. Now, your next meeting is
June
June
25th.
June 25th.
25th. So that gives you about 4 weeks to spend some time over there.
Regular time, 6 o'clock.
Dr. Woodruff,
Yes, sir.
since we got some younger minds in the room, I would like to actually hear from them if they have anything to add at this point, or would they be willing to add some things later?
Now, wait a second, when you said younger mind,
Okay.
I'm assuming you're talking about, Marcia just came in and sat down.
Yeah, that's
the younger,
exactly.
that's
Good
the
to
younger
see you.
mind.
Yeah.
I'm talking about our intern.
Gentlemen, y'all want to come up to the
There's
mics?
some women tonight.
You want to see one or two?
Why don't we come up and sit here?
Let's do it. I mean,
Would you like to start? Or would you like me to start?
I don't have that much to offer, but I would say that I like the idea of going and making the personal connection with them, because even though we're not supposed to, and we don't know yet exactly what we're going to come with as a solution, it's always nice, especially when you work in the government, to reach out to the people that you help and you represent, to make that connection. Because a lot of times, when you're out there, especially when life's hard, even if it's good or bad, it's nice to know that someone's looking out for you. And I feel like a lot of times when there's so many people involved in communities, that it's easy to slip into that mindset of, oh, the people out there don't actually care about me. And so I think this does a little double duty. It's helping us out by, like you said, gathering those pros and cons for the future, but at the same time, on the personal level, it reminds them that there are people there and they're trying to do something for them. So.
At the moment, as an intern here for the city of Jacksonville, and also just someone who's with the city in general, the ideal thing for me to do is observe with the community, especially because one of the things that I've personally experienced in my life, or along with both in a personal life and professional world, a lot of people don't appreciate when legislations or policies are passed without any connections being made to the community. What my fellow intern Paul just said is that it is very ideal for us to engage these communities and actually understand what their desires are, what their wants are, and also what their needs are, because none of the three are met very often. And so the best thing to do would be to connect before we decide to form not necessarily a plan of action, but form laws or legislations for them. Excuse me?
No.
Oh, I'm
You said
sorry.
right now, you said form the programs. Before we
Legislation.
set up the programs, you said, what the last thing you said?
I said before laws or legislation should be made, we need to engage the community and understand what they want and need.
I had programs, right. Okay. I just want to check that off.
Appreciate it.
And, I'll say
Good
this.
idea.
One thing I learned when I was actually campaigning, I did get a lot of information back from, individuals, wanting me to do this, that, and the other, making no promises,
Right.
but making people understand that they will be considered. You'll get people that will communicate with you. You'll get others that say there's no problem in their lives, so only thing we could do is try
That's it.
and execute, So, I thank you for the opportunity, Thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to working with you guys and trying to make this city a whole lot better place.
Dr. Woodard? I had a question
Bring one up.
for you. If these guys are finished, guys, are you good?
I believe I'm done.
So we're gonna be doing an assessment for the next 30 days.
I am.
And in my experience, assessments are challenging. And it's very difficult to come up with any sort of action plan if your assessment is not, it's not really done properly. And so if we look at the word assessment, we probably have as many different ideas of what that looks like in the room as we've got people in the room. And there's so many different things to assess. So it's such a broad thing, and it's over a 30-day period, which is really short. And if we're going to take some kind of effective action, then it seems like we're going to need to really talk about what that assessment is going to be, what it's going to be focused on, and how are we going to be able to do it as, professionally as possible and skillfully as possible. So I'm not a terribly skilled assessor, but I do have to evaluate things, all the time. So it's challenging. On a small scale, doing it in a church and a congregation, but to do an entire community and to try to come up with an accurate assessment of an entire community so that you can take some action steps that really actually have a prayer, boy, that's a tall order in 30 days.
Well, we can take as much time as you want. One of the things I have learned in life is if things are going to get done, you assign a short time period. Because if we gave you 90 days, some of you will be out there every day in the 90-day period.
Right.
Some of you will wait until day 86. and you'll be out there.
Now, don't give away too much of your psychology now. Or we,
So, and you are, Chris, you are correct. We are not doing a scientific analysis.
yeah.
What we're looking for are your opinions and thoughts.
Yeah.
You are an advisory group. You're not a consultant team.
Right.
I mean, if we wanted to spend, pick a number, $30,000, we could hire a detailed survey crew to go in and do everything. That's one way to do it, and there's nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, I believe that as citizens, you know a lot of the people who live there. And they are going to engage with you probably better than they would engage with a professional survey team. Why?
True.
Because you are Jacksonville. You can say, like Mr. Jackson just said, when he was younger, I didn't say young, I just said younger. He spent a lot of time at Jack Amyette. Maybe when you're at Jack Amyette doing your observations, you're going to notice those things that, hey, a lot of people do this, but nobody's doing this over here. I wonder why. Or while I was observing, these are comments I heard from people that we should consider adding A, B, C, D. So, it's not intended to be anything other than citizens listening and giving your advice I mean, it's not, I agree with Chris, it's not a scientific way of doing it. But I'll also say to you, most of the things that we do at our level, they're not based upon science. They're based upon what we hear people say they need. I'll give you an example. In Gordon's neighborhood, we know for a long time that we've had difficulty with the safety issues of people walking to Georgetown. Well, guess what? Right now, the city's in the process, while we did a lot of good things through Georgetown, which have eliminated that dangerous curve walk, we're in the process right now of getting bids to add about 1,000 feet of sidewalk over there. We didn't do any surveys. We just observed and said, this is a dangerous situation. How do we eliminate it? So that's really what we're asking to do, is be observers and come back with your citizen thoughts.
That was going to be my question. And I was in another meeting. I apologize for being late, but what is it we're trying to get at is my question. Would be my question.
We're
Because
trying
I
to.
agree with you.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to evaluate something if you don't create it correctly on the front end. If you're coming in to evaluate something that you have not put that energy into, it is impossible to evaluate it. So I'm wondering, I was going to ask, do we have a tool that you're looking for us to use? So apparently that's not part of the equation. So that being said, what is it you're trying to get at in New River
You got a hand down
that you
there.
have time to do in 4 weeks?
Well, I was going to say, based on what I'm hearing in the conversation what Dr. Woodruff is trying to relay out, is that as all of us are sitting around the table, if we all were to go out and walk through New River, drive through New River, and from our own opinions see what is needed or what we feel individually needs to be done, then we all come back as a collective, and then we all say, if we got sheets on the paper and say, okay, what did you have, what did you have, then that will allow us to kind of narrow down what is a common theme. And then from there, we can take it and say, okay, how do we attack that as being the common theme? Because so many people have came up with that specific item.
And yeah, and adding to that, once you start talking to people, you will begin to hear some common themes.
Right.
You'll hear the same things over and over and over. We may need, I don't want to, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to give you ideas. I'll stop. But you'll begin to hear people say, we need X, Y, Z. And then if each of you hear that, and like she said, and we come back and collect the data, it's unscientific, but it gives you a good sense of what the community is feeling. It's just it's a pulse. And another word that we like to use is tackling low-hanging fruit. You have short-term things you can do real quick. You may say, you know what, that could be done next week if somebody hadn't noticed it.
Right.
Solved. And then there'll be things that will take more long-term strategies and more funding and planning. So you will get it. I promise you. Whenever we go out to these meetings, you hear the same thing over and over. You'll get a feel for what they want.
I'd like to say one thing on the area, like you say, the New River area and the Georgetown area. We got to focus on one thing too. We got to focus on the people, not just focus on ourselves and what's happening in their neighborhood. What I mean by that, we need say what you mean and mean what you say. Because like I'm a young man, just like he said, when my daddy and them came up, my daddy and them always told us, you ain't got to worry about that. They ain't gonna do nothing about it no way. Guess what? I'm 58 years old and this came true. They ain't done nothing. But like I always, it didn't dampen me none. Because I always look at it like this: say what you mean and mean what you say. If you say you're gonna do it, do it. Because if you kill an area, you can forget about that area. You can go and talk till your hair turn purple. You can't gain that person because you done killed that individual. Take my neighborhood for instance. Go over there and talk to some of the people. You could talk until your tongue turn purple. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Let the people be involved. If you just like Sister Lily here said, if you hear the same thing over and over and over, you need to focus on that. Because that's what the people want. Not what you want, because you don't live there. You ain't got to walk down the sidewalk, walk down the empty streets, or whatever. Do what the people want, not what you want. If you got, say for instance, New River, say that it's flooding. Why would you worry about a baseball diamond And you notice over here is flooding, the people got to swim to the door and swim out. That's the stuff that burns a person's mind and kills a person's spirit. It's good to have, for the city to have all this stuff, but give the people what they need, not what you want or what you want to see, or sit up and say, look what I did in that neighborhood. That don't get it.
That's why I said I think it's good for us to go out and communicate with the neighborhood.
Right.
Exactly
So
right.
you get an understanding of what the people need.
But
instead
once you
of-
get a person burnt, you can forget them. You know why? I'm burnt in my heart a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I don't let it bother me. You know, because I have showed the city some areas that we need to be fixed, or need to be done. Have they been done? No.
Well, I think it's a matter of opinion, but I would
Yeah.
also say, in this neighborhood, if you look at the things we have done at Jack Amyette, those things came out of comments in the community. Why do you have a splash pad over there now? Because there's so many children, and the parents told us they need something for those young people to do. Why did we redo the recreation center, and so on and so on? Certainly, Gordon, you and I have a different opinion about whether the city has acted correctly in your neighborhood. But the point being, we have two choices. We can do nothing,
I'll do something.
or we can do something. And what we're asking you to do is help us decide what is it. And I think the best way to decide what it is that needs to be done over there. Now, some people will say all those units need to be torn down. Some other people say we may need more of this, that, and the other. Everything we hear, we're not going to be able to do. We're then going to have to prioritize and say, realistically, can we buy all 702 units of the New River area? The answer is no. It just sold for $13 million. But on the other hand, if there's A, B, C, or D that we constantly hear, that tells us where we focus.
I'm gonna say this, and what I'm hearing from you, my take is I always have a heartburn like Gordon when you have scientific developments come in. The city pay a bunch of money to tell you what to do to your neighborhoods, especially when you have to get them out of Raleigh or Greenville or other areas to tell you what to do to your city. And the best way to find out, like you said, is to talk to the people that live there. Because I always said, if you come to my house and talk to me about what's going on out on Cardinal Drive, I can tell you more than a person coming from Raleigh. So why are you going to pay them all that money to come down here and tell me what my neighborhood needs? And I used to get mad with the city of Jacksonville. I say this because we used to have people coming in, and then when I was on beautification, what happened was we paid this person to tell us about a park or something, how to fix the common, and the thing ran out, and then we lost the money. So that was a waste of taxpayers' money when we could have put the money to a place where it was really needed. So now with this, like I said, boots on the ground, you go out, you see, you talk to the neighbors, you let them, like let us say, you're going to hear certain things over and over again. I hear it all the time in my neighborhood. Please don't let them open up that road going back to that building back there, because right now, nobody stops at the stop sign. That's the problem I'm having. But I call the police department every time I see them do it. But the thing about it is, like I tell people, get out, find out what's out there. Then if you see something, come back and let me know. I'll bring it down. I'll write it down and bring it down here. So that's what we have to do. As citizens, we need to engage with your neighbors. Find out what's going on. And a lot of them don't take G10. A lot of them don't take the paper. And they don't know what's going on. And a lot of your seniors are scared to venture out because they are scared to be, they get, like a lot of them at our church, they in before dark. They don't stay. I'm serious. I probably would be that way if I didn't have my mace. But anyhow,
Mace.
on my keychain, I'm not stepping out at Walmart late at night with no protection. They used to say,
Blow out with bubble gum?
yeah, I don't tell me about that. But anyway, a lot of the old ones, they said, "Come on, baby, we got some right down here in Georgetown." And I know she said, Miss Sarah, she said, "Oh, baby, I got to get home before it gets dark." She drives. She said, "Because I'm scared after it gets dark, my car might stop or something." And I understand what she's saying. She's 80-something years old. So that's what I'm talking about. But she can tell you what's going on during the day because she's home all day and what she sees. And I think if we do that and get together, and most of them know all of us, or they seen us or heard of us, they'll be more willing to talk to us than somebody else that would come in and, do that kind of work. So We just have to get at it, I think. I will, I know I will.
And thank you for that, Ms. Gloria. And this also ties in with the strategy for even redefining the name of this community. And it shifted from community development to community engagement. This is an excellent example of what that should look like. Yes, ma'am.
Then we might want to just take a blank piece of paper.
Yeah,
Please take a
right,
notepad.
that's what I do.
Yeah. You need a
Blank
piece
piece
of
of paper.
Take me a
a-
tablet.
A notebook,
A
something
notepad.
like that.
I'll take
and
me a
just
tablet,
Write
put
down
down what I
whatever
see.
they're
Mhm.
concerned about.
Yeah, take notes.
What you
I
see,
work
what they-
part-time at a school that is now in New River, and we have activities sometimes right out there in the parking lot.
Yeah, Zeka? Okay,
At Zecca. And then there's Miller Mott, this.
right,
is it
right
Miller
across.
Mott? This right across the parking lot from us. And then we also use Jack Emiette, use their facility as well for activities. So there are a lot of kids, a lot of children out there.
Yeah, there
There's
is.
that year-round school, New River, what is it? Clyde Irwin is
Clyde
now
Irwin,
a year-round
Yeah, so they
school.
there all the time.
So there are kids there all the time, except for the 3-week break. And then there are kids at the playground. There's a lot going on. And then there's a lot of traffic.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of people walking, just strolling through that don't look like they belong. They might belong, but they're just strolling.
Yeah.
Those types of things. So I hear all of that. I see all of that. And I'm in New River a lot,
Me too.
just about every day.
I would like
in
to
that
add
area.
that if you're out there assessing, to also look at the positives and the things that we have done. Don't just go into the neighborhood to try to find all the negatives. Find out some of the
No.
positives and bring that back to us to tell us what we have done right.
Well, they'll let you know.
I have a question because I'm new to this committee. My name is Will Smith. And a few things, like you mentioned that New River, the housing part is privately owned. If that's privately owned and the the shopping complex is privately owned, what is the responsibility of those owners, and how much does the city, how much leeway, latitude, as we're going out? Because I came up with a general plan of how I'm, thinking that it would go. And one is assess the culture, because you have people from everywhere over there, I mean, if you can get in the culture, then you can begin to see what's there, and then they're gonna give us some input. So how much latitude do we have on the output to actually come up with a plan? Because if the city doesn't own it and it's privately owned, and now we're just dealing with the people there, then we're gonna burn them by going and asking all these questions, and 10 or 20 years later, using your word, we haven't done the right thing. Because the part that the city owns, like you said, it's a matter of opinion. They have a splash pad, they have a baseball park that Jack Amiette has rebuilt because the city has control of that. Now, the rest of it, the city doesn't necessarily control. So how much latitude when we go out that we can say, hey, we're gonna get this done?
Well, you can't. You can't commit the city to anything.
Yeah,
We're
and
asking you to be
I'm
our
talking about the
eyes and
city
ears.
itself, not
But
me,
If, for example, and this is, I don't want anybody to, if, for example, they say, we think the entire area over here needs to be bulldozed and new housing built. Well, that's not gonna happen. But if, on the other hand, you hear that, look, here's a need that we don't have here's a need in our community that we don't have. Even though the city may not be able to directly meet that need, if we know that need is whatever.
Okay.
Let's say it's daycare, or, whatever. Maybe it gives us the ability to go try to find someone in the private sector who's willing to set up a better daycare program, or go to the school board and talk to them about this. Most of the problems that we have in neighborhoods are social problems.
Okay.
Social problems don't require a lot of money to fix unless you're trying to fix a physical problem. Now, drainage and flooding, that's not a social problem. It's a physical problem that leads to a social problem. What we're looking for is, if we want this area to be a place where people want to live, the first thing you're going to have to do, in my opinion, is create as safe an environment as possible. And that's what we need to know. Do they want more programs for children? Do they want more street lights? I mean, I'm doing what I tell Mr. Jackson not to do. We need to find out from the people who live there, what are the things that they think are essential since they're there 24 hours a day.
That makes sense. Now, is there a database that we can pull certain information from? Like economic stats, educational stats?
We have some census data, and we also have some of that data is in our HUD CPD maps, because they've compiled some of the census data. But there's also, oh Lord, can't think of the website, but it's a American Survey. There's another website, we can get all, ACS, American Community Survey. We can get tons of data.
Okay.
So, we can get
You
that for
know, everybody's going to have to decide how they want to approach this. I would encourage you to visit and learn the neighborhood before you get any data on anything. We could have brought in here tonight everything about the crime data and what type of crime and this, that, and the other, and socioeconomic information, age profiles, and all that. The problem with that, it begins to, if you pardon the way I'm going to say that, it begins to set certain thought patterns that prevent you from being objective. Now, once we get your objective views, we are going to bring back to you all of the data relative to crime, relative to home ownership, because not every unit in there is owned by one person. The church owns some units and this, that, and the other. What we don't want you to do, though, is look at those units that are owned by the church and look at those units that are individually owned, or look at those units that are owned by the national corporation. That type of information begins to set mindsets, because you're automatically going to think, well, the people who live in the church units are much better and they're not creating any problems, whereas the people over here in the rental units, they're creating all the problems. So we don't even want to give you a map other than the big map that says, here it is.
Yeah, we know what that.
We wouldn't be fooled by that, would we?
Well, we understand that most churches are full of saints and every now and then a sinner. So,
He didn't.
No, what I meant is not like upfront. I don't want any information upfront because, as you know, just as you go, you want to kind of match some things up. Because, like I said, you want to make sure your input, if the input is bad, when we start coming back to our next meeting and pushing the output, what we'll start doing is spinning our wheels quick. And I don't want to do that. I just want to make sure I got the right information in there. That's it. Yeah, I didn't want it right now, you know.
well, you're welcome to it right now. I'm just saying, we're trying to do
Because
this.
I just came tonight to see when you're going to get to my neighborhood. Yeah, my car got stolen right out the driveway.
No way.
So, there you go.
I'll bring it back tomorrow.
Is he serious?
Yes, I'm
You
very
serious? huh?
Really? Oh, my goodness.
Not that name.
But no, we hear it. We hear.
I know, that's why you got the
That caught
nice
my
car.
attention.
They ain't got the good stuff.
I know it's a loose-ended assignment. I hope that you will accept our apology for it being so loose-ended. But, you know, that's the way that I've always believed is you've got to start by not setting too many parameters and then decide, okay, from what all you've heard, how much of that is actually valid? And then putting the data to say, that really isn't a valid complaint because of this, this, and this. Or, hey, the data really does show that what you identified, the data showing is in fact a fact. So how do we address that since the data supports what you've been told?
Like, let me say something. When I went to Dr. Woodruff, concerned about this area, I have my own personal ideas about why some things happen. All right? But the reality is the complexion of the way things were changed. So now we got to get into, okay, what's going on right now? And how do we find solutions? Or how do we work towards solutions? I know we can't right every wrong in a day. And I'm learning more and more about my position is about planning the future. You know, doing what we can in the past, but a lot of it has to do with foreseeing, trying to make a more positive future. So, you know, I just would like to see us try to make an attempt at trying to find solutions. And we might fail along the way, but sometimes we learn through the failure of what we need to do. So, and that's just one area of Jacksonville, like we said. And if we actually can do something for New River, it might have a residual effect at other different communities in the area. I mean, because one thing I understand about New River and Jack Amyette, it touched downtown Jack. Even though you had Kerr Street down there, it touched downtown Jacksonville because the inside court was in New River. It touched Belfort Homes. It touched Pickett Town. It touched even Sandy Run Apartments. So I know that's some of the things, that's what helped some of those communities. A lot of different things have happened over the years, and we just got to find out, you know, like I said, talk to the people, try to get an understanding from their perspective of what's going on, and then we need to make attempts to execute whatever we can to fix those things. You know, 30 days we might find out something. 60 days we might find out something else. At the same time, I know this committee has other work as well, so it might be an agenda item where Lily says, hey, can you give us an update on what you're doing or what you've been doing? And then we do what we need to do concerning what comes to the table, and then we make the next step. But my thing is, let's start doing something now.
Before the summer gets here, trust me.
Any other questions of what we're asking for you to contribute?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Turn it back to you for other items.
Okay. Is there anything else before we go? Questions? Okay. Questions and answers. Our next meeting at the bottom of your agenda, and that's June the 25th, 2018, but that will be at 6 o'clock. So now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Nobody wants to leave?
So
I
motion.
want to go.
Huh?
A motion.
Okay, she did.
Yes.
We get
Was
a
it second? Okay. But an approved and second meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all very much. for
Appreciate it.
coming.
And let's get on the ground running.